mind just telling us who you are, a little bit more about who you are and where you're coming from?
Sure. Hi, everybody. It's a privilege to be with you tonight. I'm living in Seattle, Washington. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, and my dad was a city planner with the Portland Development Commission. So I've had a long history of looking at what communities can do and can be for the uplifting of the entire people, and so that really interests me. I've been walking with the Congregation of St. Luke since 2015, as we did revitalization work, as we did tons of repair and deferred maintenance on our 55,000 square foot property with 10 buildings. And through that, realized that all the past kind of plans to develop the property had come to naught, and we didn't really have any more time. We couldn't kick the can down the road any further, and it was either die and or develop.
I'm Melissa Reed. I'm one of the Bishop's Associates for the Oregon Synod and co-director of Evangelical Mission. My first call was to Redeemer Lutheran Church, which Britt just named, which is where Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon was located at the back in the day. And my call was to accompany that I didn't know it at first, but was to listen deeply to the hearts of that congregation and the neighborhood with them, and through a process of the spiral of organizing, to accompany that congregation through a dying and rebirth process. And so over the course of 4.5 years, we transitioned from being Redeemer Lutheran Church to Loving Community.
Ready to do what's called an appreciative inquiry process, which you're talking about one-on-ones, and it's an opportunity for people to talk one-on-one, and to come with their deepest hopes and dreams for their neighborhood and for their congregation. And we conducted those one-on-ones not just with our congregation, but also with our volunteers and staff, and with our guests at our Edible Hope Kitchen, our breakfast program, with our partners on the property. We had a number of churches and nonprofits on the property, with our business community, and with our city council district, and people involved in the political process in our neighborhoods. So that process, year-long process, was, everyone will tell you that was essential. We set a vision statement, a mission statement. We developed our essential elements for any development we would do on our land, our dreams, and then our wild, audacious goals. And so that finished just in 2019. And from there, we were enabled to begin the process of researching and exploring options for our property. Just briefly, and then you can ask questions. We are in what's called the permitting process. The master use permit has been filed, and we are under contract with both an affordable housing provider and a mixed-use market rate provider to build 120 units of affordable family housing. That's 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom units, some studios, as well as 160 market rate units and a church space, about 14,000 square foot church community center with 20 parking spaces as part of underground parking for 180 cars. So we expect to break ground the end of 2023 on those very ambitious building plans. have a little different polity in the Episcopal Church. We're considered a mission, so we don't have the ability to make decisions about our contractual agreements or our land or our buildings on our own. We have to have the diocese do that for us. We're kind of like, I don't know how to describe that. And so any plan for development would have to be, the decisions would have to be made by the diocesan board of directors and by the bishop. And we had a bishop and board of directors led development process through 2013, where they had invested close to $300,000 just on the development alone, not counting the congregational revitalization. And it had ended with no action being taken and no way forward that they could see that wouldn't cost the diocese money and it wouldn't provide any affordable housing. And so they suspended the whole process. So after the bishop told me we had 5 years, we came back to the executive team of the diocese, because I realized doing a power analysis that if the diocese did not fully back us, plus allow us to research and take the lead on this process, nothing would ever happen, because they are busy with so many other things that they do not live as we do in the neighborhood and know the people. And so our team had a meeting planned with all the power people at the diocese, the bishop, the assistant to the bishop, who we call canon to the ordinary. There you get the canon title, by the way. The diocesan chancellor, which is the attorney, the head of the properties team, the head of the board of directors. And we had prepared an agenda and a report, and the bishop came in hot, sat down and took over the meeting and started it and was large and in charge. And, you know, when I was able to get a break in his sort of presentation, I said, you know, we did have a little agenda and it did include starting with prayer. And I wonder if maybe you could do that, or I'd be happy to do that. Just, let's start with prayer. And, no bishop can say no to that. So we did. And, he finally looked down at the agenda that was in front of him. And I said, let's do a little introductions. And as the members of our team introduced themselves and it became clear what their qualifications were, you could just see the bishop's anxiety dropping a little bit. And he kind of not graciously, but sort of let us kind of follow that agenda. And as we did our presentation and we had our ducks in a row, and every time we go before the board of directors, we have our ducks in a row. We have a PowerPoint presentation. We have clarity on our ask. We have our professional partners with us to answer any technical questions. And so we have the full and complete support of our diocese to do this enormous, it's the largest building project the diocese has ever undertaken. And so that was really important to do at the beginning.
I'm currently working with a Presbyterian congregation, Westminster Presbyterian in Northeast Portland. There is, and the presbytery, there is a piece of land not too far from that other congregation where the congregation has closed, and there's a piece of land that has some renters in the building, but it hasn't been an active faith community in years. And also an indigenous community that is a collective of 12 Indigenous-led organizations that have come together, and they're called the Future Generations Collaborative. And through a process of accompanying Westminster Presbyterian to reckon with the racist history of their land and how they came to be owners of it, opened up their hearts to want to understand how they could be a part of healing in the community, with the Indigenous community, and discovering also that this piece of land that the Presbytery owns kind of in the next neighborhood over that has a very similar land story to theirs is like available, and the Presbytery is trying to know what to do with it. And then through our organizing work and the faith community's relationship with the Future Generations Collaborative, that Indigenous led collaborative, and knowing a vision they have to create a tiny home village for Indigenous women and children transitioning out of houselessness, and a community center that includes Indigenous led early childhood education. We were able to weave relationship between this congregation, the Presbytery, and the Future Generations Collaborative toward a land back situation where the Presbytery would give the land to the Future Generations Collaborative to realize this vision. The piece of land of where it lives, or where this land lives in the neighborhood, is called Laurelhurst. It's one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the city of Portland. We knew that NIMBYism was going to be like hardcore in this project. Like, I don't know if we could have picked a harder neighborhood, honestly, to decide to do this, but Westminster's a fairly large congregation, and they have members that live in this neighborhood. So we mapped where they live. We did relational work with the members that live there, including some of the people on our team. And we organized house meetings. Early on in the process, we knew that NIMBYism, not in my backyard, energy would come forward. We also know that there are folks who are, yes, in my backyard folks, but they're often quieter. And because we get riled up around things we are angry about, usually, first and foremost. So we had Westminster members and friends of theirs hold house meetings and invite their neighbors to build power around the project, toward the project, out the gate. And also connecting with the neighborhood association, but not going in and kind of playing the neighborhood association game. I don't know what neighborhood associations are like in Washington. In the city of Portland, they're often gatekeeping organizations. And so we also partnered with their equity, diversity, inclusion committee and got them on board early. And they helped also hold these house meetings. And we were able to find allies quickly and build an energy and momentum. And that's helped the neighborhood association become an actual like amazing partner in this work, as well as it started to root out the NIMBYism early. And sometimes people are NIMBYs more because they have questions and they need some accompaniment. And as a white woman, as most of the Westminster Presbyterian folks are white folks, we talked about how we could probably accompany some people to a place of yes, if we walked with them and helped answer their questions and lower fear, but also kind of walk with them on a pathway to anti-racism work, which would help make the neighborhood more welcoming and affirming to Barbie's Village, and ultimately make the project more successful. And so we ended up rooting out the Pacific Street neighbors who skirt the land where this will be built. It was a bunch of women of a certain age, and they said, well, well, we still need more information. And we said, let's have a house meeting with just your folks. And over the course of that house meeting, they went from afraid and anxious and feeling sort of ashamed about their fear and anxiety to feeling like they wanted to support the project. And so I would say that that's an example of like, there's a watershed moment happening in that neighborhood where what we're doing is totally legal, but they, with the power of money that they have in connection in that neighborhood, they could keep us in the loop-de-loops of the law, like they could sue us over and over again. And we'll probably have to deal with some of that, but I think we've kind of mitigated some of that and we've started to build capacity around the project there.